Well, welcome to this month's FCCI Pathway to Purpose webinar. We're featuring Dr. Paul White again this month, and we're in the second of a three-part series stemming from his book, The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. I'm Ken Powell, a member of the FCCI leadership team here, and looking forward to hosting today's webinar, being here with you today. Just prior to our webinar starting, you may have seen that there are a number of ways that you can become further engaged with the broader FCCI family of Christian business owners and leaders. I wanted to specifically highlight this year's international conference at Dove Mountain in Tucson, Arizona. That's September 17 through 20. In fact, the early bird registration rates will expire March 31st. So go ahead, get yourself and your leadership team registered just as soon as possible. I also wanted to highlight that we're starting a new group study this Thursday at noon Eastern. It's an 8-week group study, and it's based on a book by David Harper entitled The Great Eight, and it provides a strategy to align your business culture and the virtues that were taught by Christ in the Beatitudes. And you can find a registration link for that study on our website under the events menu. In fact, speaking of the website and the events menu, there are many opportunities for you to participate in FCCI in gatherings, retreats, studies that are happening around the country. So, in your desire to expand your kingdom impact and increase your influence, do yourself a favor and see if there's an FCCI event happening in your area in the coming months. Well, based on the overwhelmingly positive feedback we received from some of you following last month's webinar, we know that today's webinar content from Dr. Paul White is going to be of tremendous value to you. So if you weren't with us last month, let me briefly note the fact that Dr. White has collaborated with Dr. Gary Chapman to develop this culture-changing material. It's stemming from Dr. Chapman's well-known and for so many of us, life-changing book, The Five Love Languages. Dr. White has been featured and interviewed by BBC News, Entrepreneur.com, Fox Business, Fast Company, Fortune, many others, and he spent many years speaking and training business leaders and kingdom influencers at some of the most well-known companies around the world. So it's an honor to welcome back Dr. White and to continue this dialogue and move toward even a greater understanding and application of the languages of appreciation. So, Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be with you.
Yeah. Well, now since we were together last month, you and I have had a few times to dialogue, and I've learned a few things. First, I've learned that you're not only married to an identical twin, but that God also blessed you and your wife with identical twins. So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm curious, do
Uh,
identical twins have identical languages of appreciation?
well, they may. I think my wife and her twin sister probably do, but I'm pretty sure our sons don't because part of it is actually my wife growing up in the 60s and so forth when twins were treated pretty similarly. It was really important to her to treat each of our guys individually and sort of
Hmm,
get to know them and their bents. And so I think
sure.
as a result of that, their experiences and values and what's important to them vary. So I don't think it's hardwired genetically.
Sure. So even identical twins have to go through this process of doing the work of trying to figure out how to apply these languages of appreciation and to walk in a Christ-like manner and how we care for each other, even when we're family. It
Yeah,
has so much
that's
importance.
true.
So the second thing that we have has transpired over the past month is the fact that we've confirmed your involvement with this year's international conference in September, and we're really excited to announce that today. And while I don't want to get cart ahead of horse, I've enjoyed the initial conversations we've had about topics you'd potentially be covering. So, any quick sneak peeks for our audience here today?
Yeah, no, I'm excited as well. And you know, a key issue for businesses and organizations is that whole cultural piece of work. And it's becoming more and more important, sometimes for good reasons and sometimes for not so good reasons. But we're going to talk
Mhm.
about really the journey of culture and how do you change culture? How do you develop culture?
Mhm.
There are a lot of great resources and books about it, but they seem to be fairly high level. And
Mhm.
I'm Mr. Practical, and we're going to get down to okay. These are some steps you can take to help change and improve and shape the culture at your workplace. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. I literally within the past hour I received one of your emails that came through. And by the way, folks, if you're not on the email list, you should do that with Dr. White and his team. But even as we're looking forward to next month's webinar, you're going to be talking about negativity and dealing with negativity in the workplace. And just to read briefly here what was mentioned in the email that bringing humor into the workplace is one of the inexpensive antidotes to negativity and difficult circumstances. So I'm looking forward to what you'll be talking about next month. Again, as you talked about, like really liking to get down to the practical ways and how do we get traction around these things in the workplace. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time.
Awesome. Well, as we get ready to turn things over to Paul for his presentation today, let me ask you if you would kindly like and subscribe to the FCCI YouTube channel and to utilize the chat function to introduce yourselves, submit questions and comments. If you do have a question for Paul, which would be thrilled if you did, to dive deeper into this engagement after the presentation, just put a Q in front of your question so we can search and find that easily in the comment stream. So with that, Paul, I'll go ahead and turn things over to you. And thanks again for being with us today.
You bet. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome you all. Hi from the Midwest. It's a beautiful day here. We have to take those when we get them this time of year. So I'm thankful for the sunshine and blue sky. Hey, let me just briefly tell you a little bit about the work that we do. For those of you that aren't aware, we've been blessed to be able to sell several books, 600,000 books, both of the five languages of appreciation, some others related to workplace. uh, have an online assessment, the Motivating by Appreciation Inventory, that I'll talk to you about a little bit. 350,000 people worldwide have taken that. We have an Appreciation at Work training program for in-house HR professionals or trainers that they can take your teams through process of learning about how to communicate authentic appreciation. Have over 1,200 people globally in 60 countries. Um, and we've got big name clients. We don't work with the whole organization in most of the cases. A couple of them we do, but often they're divisions, and lots of different kinds of organizations and schools and hospitals and government agencies and the military. So I'm just thankful to be able to have that kind of influence that God's given to us. We went through and did some introductory kinds of discussions last week about the five languages and appreciation and the importance of it, just so that both to review, sort of get primed the pump for those that were there, but also for those of you that weren't able to join. I think it's probably recorded online, but just some core concepts. Concepts. One is that, from our point of view, employee recognition is not the same thing as authentic appreciation, and we really do emphasize the authenticity. And employee recognition can be really helpful and good when it's designed and implemented well. Sometimes that's not always the case, but lots of times both appreciation and recognition can work together. Secondly, most people, when you hear appreciation, you think about words, saying thanks or giving a compliment, and really we found that it's deeper and broader than just words. And as we'll see, that if you only use words, less than half of employees have words as their primary language. So you're sort of missing them from the get-go in communicating in a way that's meaningful to them. Third, a lot of business managers and leaders say, I'm fine if my employees are happy, but that's not really my task or goal. And I agree. In this context, the goal of appreciation isn't to make others people feel happy. We're fine with that if it happens, but really the goal is to create a healthy, functional organization. And I use the image of oil in a machine. That without oil, a machine can work, but it's got friction, it's got heat, sparks, gets stuck. And I think appreciation is like oil in an organization. It helps make the parts work together better and more smoothly. And we've got lots of research in our second chapter of our book. We've got over 50 research citations about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And that, sort of, it's not a big discovery that not everybody feels appreciated in the same ways. And but lots of times we sort of treat people that way. We sort of do the same thing for everybody, so we don't really match reality. And that I want to make sure that those of you all that are leaders know for sure that it's not your sole responsibility to show appreciation to everybody in your organization, or even right underneath you. That, yeah, we want you involved, but more and more younger employees want to be appreciated by their colleagues and their peers as well as their supervisor. And so we really focus that on that in our training process to include both groups. And I think that's what helps make it successful. So let's move to, why is this whole deal even important? And we're going to talk about three R's today. One is retention, the other is recruitment, and the other is remote employees. And so appreciation is critical for each of those. Let's talk about retention. A study a couple of years ago found that 79% of the people who leave a job voluntarily cite a lack of appreciation as one of the key factors for their leaving. Now, most business leaders and managers think people leave for more money. And actually, I've got some other research. I don't know, 86% of managers think that that's why people leave, and only 17% of the people leaving say it's for money. They may get more money, but what drives people to leave is really that feeling like nobody cares, nobody listens to them. They're just a cog in the wheel, and they prefer to work in a place that they do feel valued. Um, Recently, this came out in January, so pretty recent. MIT, the Sloan Business School, did a research study looking at the Great Resignation over the last year or so, and found that feeling appreciated was 3 times more likely to predict people leaving than compensation. And it's not like 3 percentage points more or what. It's 3 times. It's a huge factor. And so if you're trying to retain your team members, like most of us are, and you're like, well, I don't know if we can give them raises. That is not the way to go. I mean, if you can do it, great. But you need to focus on culture and on the interactions and how they feel about working, at your place of employment. So that's going to get you more bang for the buck and effort than giving raises. Here's a study came out 2 weeks ago. I mean, you guys are getting late. I got one that I just finished. This one's not mine, but I just finished one this weekend that I'll share a little bit later. But 3.5 year study just came out. 13,000 nurses. I know most of you probably aren't in medical, but the principles are the same. They looked at how much recognition people got and how often, and then how long did they stay. All right. So for people who didn't get, and they actually measured the recognition. So it's not just self-report, it's that the manager, it was documentable. So people who didn't get any recognition, there's 9% of the nurses, they were gone within 6 months. All right. So then if you say, okay, a couple times a year, that doubles it, 3 times a year, a little bit more, just once a quarter, once every 3 months, if they got some recognition, their tenure stayed for 3.5 years. So a factor of 7 for just somebody recognizing and showing appreciation to them. So it's a deal. I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke at you by any means. The Gallup organization, is pretty well known and respected. They just this couple of weeks ago came out with their data from 2022 that employee engagement, that sense of being there and engaged, which that is at its lowest level in 9 years, and only 32%, less than a third of employees are actually actively engaged at work. And you may say that's everybody else. I don't think so. I think it includes some of your team members as well. And the second part of that is that employee disengagement, where they're just like, they're not even hardly involved at all. They're just sort of going through the motions or showing up physically. It's at its highest level in 9 years, 18%. So almost 20%, which is one out of every 5 employees, are just like not really putting forth much effort or energy. And that's not a good way to have a successful business, as you and I know. So I mean, the conclusion we have to make, and I feel bad about this, talking to my HR friends and so forth. But what most companies are doing isn't working, y'all. And if you just keep doing the same or trying to crank it up a little bit, it's probably going to make not make that much difference. Now, I think there's a couple factors. One is what we're doing or not doing. Secondly, I think there's changes in culture too that contribute to this. Now you say, my team's pretty good. I think we're doing all right. Well, here's a study across a number of corporations. 51% of managers said they think they do a pretty good job of recognizing employees for work well done. I like this. It feels realistic to me. It's not 90% say, hey, I'm doing a great job. Say about half, I think I'm doing okay. The problem is that only 17% of the employees who worked for those managers felt like the manager was doing a decent job of recognizing. So we've got this gap there between managers either doing something or think they're doing something, and it's really not hitting the mark. And I think, you know, part of that is it's sort of like, do we want to do stuff or we want to do something that's makes a difference? And obviously, I think it's the latter. Now, as far as recruitment, here's an interesting one that actually came out from monsters.com that of the people looking for work online on their site, 87% said that the number one characteristic, not just a key characteristic, the number one characteristic they were looking for in a workplace is to feel valued. Okay. That's just stunning to me. Now, I think that reflects some cultural issues that we've got as Christians, as followers of Christ. We know that even work doesn't provide all the value and meaning of life. And I think as God has been removed from our culture, that people, young people, everybody sort of looks more and more to other things to provide value versus their relationship with God. And so it's sort of like it's important to know, but it's not the end answer. I mean, we want to treat people well and help them feel valued, but ultimately there's going to be a disconnect there as well. It'd be an interesting discussion to have maybe at the conference. So if this is so important, I mean, if people leave when they don't feel valued and they want it, why don't most people feel valued? First of all, just the reports I give and all the research we've done, just they just don't hear much positive. And in fact, I had a friend who's an accountant said, I need to get your book, and give it to my boss. I said, what's up? He said, well, I try to do my work, do it well, do it on time. And if I'm doing that, I don't hear anything. He said, the silence is deafening. But if I'm a little bit late or I make a mistake, boom, they're on me. And it turns out he left within 6 months after our discussion because he just didn't want to work that way. So, but some people manage like this. Hopefully, this isn't you. She says, if I walk past your desk without stopping to criticize your work, that counts as a compliment. And we've probably known people or family members that, sort of relate that way. And that's just silence. It does not communicate the positive. And so we've got to get over that. Secondly, people don't feel valued because often the messages that are sent aren't that meaningful to them. And I can sort of say, okay, glad you guys are here. You're looking good. I'm glad to be a part of this. It doesn't really do anything. And let me tell you, we did research. We got right now 90,000 plus on our newsletter list, and we do polls occasionally. And we asked, what don't you like to hear? And one of the main things they don't like to hear is good job. Why? Because it's too vague, it's too general. You could say it to anybody, it doesn't take any time or thought. And it doesn't get it done. Now, a lot of us were taught, maybe even in sports and stuff, to say that, but we're going to talk about how to give an effective compliment here in a minute. Next, people don't feel valued because they just feel like it's all about their performance and it's not about them as a person. And, we strongly believe that employees are people. And as a result, we have value, and every person has value regardless of their performance. And this is important. Yes, they're there to get work done, and we want them to do well. But, when we had our twins, we were in Phoenix, away from family, sleep deprivation of the max for 2 years. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I was I was a social worker at the time, and I wasn't the best on my team. Not because I wasn't trying. I was just stressed out of my gourd. I didn't need more drive about performance. I just needed some support. So sometimes we have to remember about that people have lives, right, besides work, and lives intersect. And the more we can care about that and maybe try to help out some, that can make a difference. And then lastly, people just don't think others are sincere. I mean, I've had people say, yeah, it's fine, we're going through this training, but really the management doesn't give a rip about us. They're just going through this to check off the box so they look good to the board of directors. So that can be the case. And so that's why we do focus on authentic appreciation and both how to communicate that and also what to do if you're not feeling like you appreciate somebody. So that's sort of why what happens organizationally. There's lots of different things, but let me share real quickly. I mean, tardiness increases when people don't feel valued. They show up late to work, from break, from lunch. They call in sick more often. This has been documented that they just don't show up, which is a huge issue in manufacturing and legal work, in medical work. You're just not able to move things forward. Um, Productivity decreases when people don't feel valued. Um, and specifically, creative problem solving decreases because that takes time and energy. And if you don't think like anybody cares, why do it? There's more on-site accidents reported when people don't feel valued. So you lose work time, your insurance rates go up. There's more irritability and conflicts. I think this is probably one of the most practical ones. Is that when people don't feel valued, they're sort of chippy, and it's like it could be over, the size of their monitor or whether they got a window or where the window or their parking spot, and they're just like little things bug them. Whereas when people do feel valued, they sort of flow with that more and let those slide. Um, you get more complaints from customers when your staff doesn't feel valued because they're not handling customer calls and concerns effectively and appropriately. You have higher turnover, which we know is the largest non-productive cost in business. And if we can reduce that, that helps a lot. And you have more employee theft. And then lastly, just when the staff doesn't feel valued, you got more headaches for management because you got to deal with all these issues. And so it's not just about, saying hi and smiling and all that. It's really helping people feel truly valued and appreciated, and the organization works well and better. And Ken, if you remind me that I've got we were interviewed, or actually some of our clients were interviewed by the New York Times. They were minors, and I'll get you that article that sort of gives an example of this. So remember, one of the core principles is not everybody feels appreciated in the same way. So we've got the 5 languages. They're the same in name as the 5 love languages, but they look different in daily life. And I'm going to bust through these fast so that we have a little time at the end, hopefully. Words of affirmation are words that are affirming. We're talking and saying things about what we value about another person. Um, and it can be done one-on-one, and that's sort of the most common. It's like, hey, Judith, thanks for helping staying late and cleaning up after the meeting. That way we were ready to go with our conference room this morning. So it's just, just between 2 people. It can be in front of colleagues, not necessarily a big group, but in front of a team. And it can be, on site, or it could be in a conference call. And you say, hey, man, Steve really handled that difficult client who was, upset, and he handled it well and dealt with it. And I heard back from the client, and they're good to go. So a lot of people, feel good about, sort of being praised in front of their colleagues. Written communication, obviously, we've got handwritten notes, which are less impactful for younger workers, especially younger guys. But texts and emails and chats are the way to go. And the key about that is that it sort of gives you the speed to get back to them quickly, which is important with younger employees. It's less about the handwritten note and more about that you get back to them that day or the next day and let them know what you value about what they did. Public affirmation, sort of in the past, we've done, recognition award kinds of ceremonies. But I can tell you that on average, 40% of employees do not want to go up in front of a large group to be recognized. And it actually becomes a negative. I had one CFO tell me, she said, my language, I was employee of the year, and they brought me up in front, and I spent the 15 to 20 minutes in the bathroom throwing up prior to getting the award. She was so nervous. So, some of us that like that kind of focus and attention, we can design stuff, but that's not what a lot of people want. They want the more private. Important to know, 46% of employees choose words of affirmation as their main way they want to be shown appreciation. That So it's the biggest group, but it's still less than half of all employees. So again, it's a nice, usually pretty easy and safe way to communicate appreciation if you do it privately. But if that's all you do, you're going to miss a bunch of your team members. Here's a real practical sort of tool for showing appreciation. First of all, use their name. We'd like to hear her name, and so just start off, whether it's Stephen or Becky or Raul or Juanita, whatever it is. If you're writing it, please spell their name correctly. It doesn't feel real personal if you're trying to send a note and you misspell their name. So make sure you spell it right. Secondly, be specific about what you value. So let's go back. I forget what the name I used, but let's say, Becky, thanks for staying late and cleaning up the conference room after that meeting. And the third part of that is why it's important, either to you, to the organization, or to your clients. Becky, thanks for staying late to clean up the conference room. That way, we were good to go and ready for our early morning meeting here this morning, and didn't have to come in early to deal with that. So I appreciate that. So use their name, be specific. If you I would say, if you can't be specific, just shut up until you can. I mean, it's like, figure out what they do and why it's important, versus just saying, "Hey, glad you're part of the team." Yeah, I don't know. That's not going to get you much. And then say why it's important. And I grew up in a family-owned business that was manufacturing, and one of the good things my dad did was he made sure the people on the front line knew how what they did was important to the final product, and would show them that. So it's important to do. Second language is quality time. And quality time is, for some people, especially older generations, is focused attention. We sort of grew up where, you wanted to get time with your supervisor and manager and either learn from them or share what you're learning and what you've done. And that's true for some people, but not for everybody. I mean, I've had people say, I do not want individual time with my supervisor. They're pretty intense, and I'm sort of shy, and no thanks. It just makes me nervous. And that's where other people, it's more about colleagues and peers, and especially younger workers. They really are focused more on collegial relationships than supervisor relationships. In fact, in the past, there was a saying, people don't leave a job, they leave a manager. It's less true. Younger people will endure a manager that's okay as long as they're getting along with their peers. So one way is just doing stuff together, whether that's hanging out, at lunchtime or going to a sporting event. Sometimes it's, that's where we do shared experiences offsite. We're playing golf, or maybe a volunteer situation where, a walk on a Saturday morning, a fundraiser, where people get to spend time, and it's not just about work. That when I know I had a guy that I used to work with that, he was further along in his career, and just to be able to get some individual time with him was meaningful to me. It felt like I was valued, because why? Time is one of our most valued, resources right now. Quality time is 26% of the employees choose that, so one out of every four. So it's definitely there. And some tips about time. Well, make sure you know the right kind of time. This is actually why when we first started our inventory, we just identified people's languages of appreciation. But, I had a manager say, I have a team member that says quality time is theirs. What do I do? What am I, supposed to be their best friend? So we retooled the inventory to identify the specific actions, because you can get the language right, but if you miss the action, then you still haven't really hit the target. Avoid rescheduling. I mean, we all have, things that come up, but if 2 and 3 times you have a meeting schedule and you say, hey, this came up, you're essentially saying, hey, you're not that important to me. And that doesn't send the message we want. And this is a big one. And to be honest, it seems to be sort of gender specific. For us guys, we need to limit our distractions. And this is a tip for relationship with your wives as well. In a personal relationship, if quality time is their language, don't go out and take them out to dinner and then you're watching the TV, the sports channel over their shoulder, or don't be looking at your phone or still doing the computer. My office, pointed this way. I've got a door back here. When my team members come in and want to talk, I have to stop and off. I'll say, let me finish the sentence. Then I turn around and got to get away from the computer. If I keep doing it, that's like it's not only not of value, it sort of undermines their sense of feeling valued with me not giving them my full attention. Acts of service is the third language. It's not rescuing low performing colleagues that, oh, we got to go rescue Bob or Jennifer or whatever. It's really small acts that can help make their day or week go better. And the context is really, think about sort of the easiest one to think about is when you're on a time limited project and you are focused and banging away trying to get it done. What's something that somebody can do that can help out? And what's interesting is acts of service is very both situation specific according to your industry, but also their role, because it's different for if somebody's in accounting versus somebody who is in the design lab and is trying to get a project done, or a graphic designer. So it's that kind of thing, and so it can be a lot of different kinds of things, and it can be sort of explaining something so that they're clear on the instructions, or maybe it's a new kind of task for them and you're either explaining it or showing them how to do it. It could be as simple as doing some clerical work for them, and that they're working on a presentation. Can you copy this stuff for me, or print off this stuff for me? And it can be bringing in food so they can keep working or whatever. What's interesting is it's not related to roles or responsibilities. I mean, you as a leader can, help them out and find out. Now, one of the key things is you got to do what they want, not what you think. So first here, 22% of employees have acts of service, so about one out of every five. And just a tip about this. So for some people, words aren't that important. For some people, words are actually negative. There's some people that say, words are cheap. Don't tell me you support me, show me. And I've had situations and examples where people sort of, they said things, but they never helped out. And it actually offended their team member. So lots of different kinds of things. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's usually one little thing can make a big difference at the right time. And so what you want to do is first ask, now the challenge with that in our culture is if you say, hey, can I help you out? Most people's response is, no, I'm good. All right. So you got to push through that, especially if you're up in the upper Midwest. I'm in Minnesota, Wisconsin. You got to push through the Scandinavian resistance there and say, no, really, I got some time. I'd be glad to help out. And so then you want to find out what's important to them, right? And so it may look like their desk is a wreck and they need help organizing that, but they may say, actually, I had an example of a gal who was in accounting. She said, if you could take 10 or 15 minutes to call some clients to let them know I haven't forgotten about them, I can spend that time getting focused on what I need to do to prepare for this meeting, and then I'll help out. And so it's really doing what's helpful to them, and you need to do it their way. It's not encouraging to teach them a better way, which is your way, right, of how to do things. That may come later, but just say, okay, how do you want this organized? And you try to do it their way. And you'd be amazed at, it doesn't take much to really be impactful. And I mean, I had one gal, she said, I was behind and they helped out for 15 minutes, and she started to tear up, and she said, it's just nice to know that somebody cared and took the time. And it wasn't a huge deal as far as cost. So acts of service is the third one. Tangible gifts, and relax about it. It's not bonuses. It's not raises. It's not, more money. It's not big trips. That's not what we're talking about. Really tangible gifts are small things that show that you're getting to know your colleagues and what they like. You're getting to know them as a person. Okay. And so it really is small things, and it doesn't take a lot of money usually. I'll just ask you to think about, what do you think is probably the most commonly given gift in the workplace? It's actually food, right? We may bring in somebody's favorite coffee, bring in bagels, pizza, donuts. One way to do that for the group and still be individualized is find out what different people like. Like, I have a team member who is gluten intolerant. So when we order pizza, we get it from a place that can get gluten-free pizza. Or I had a team member who liked the maple log kind of donuts, and I made sure we got one of those for her and made sure she knew about it. That I said, I know you like these, so make sure you grab one. So it's about getting to know them and what they like and maybe how they drink their coffee or whatever. Also, just investigate what are their interests and hobbies. This is about life. It's not just performance, you get something. It's you hear them talking about they're going to be coaching soccer for their kids this spring or baseball, or they're planning a container garden, outside their porch on their apartment. And you then get them some information about that, whether, these magazines that are at the grocery store or the drugstores, you just get them that and it costs you $8 or $9. And it's like, hey, I know you are planning to do this garden. I thought you might be interested in this. Or you go online, right? And you look at websites or articles, videos that help them out. And so it's about getting to know them as a person. The other thing is just, gift cards are probably the second most requested gift. And it can be, at their favorite coffee shop, especially if they're remote, or a restaurant that they like to go to, or again, a hobby and that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. It's more about the thought that you say, hey, I know you're, I don't know, you don't get to go out very often. I thought you might enjoy going to this special place for coffee, and give them a 10 or $20 kind of thing. What's interesting, though, is only 6% of employees choose tangible rewards as the main way they want to receive appreciation. And that sort of flies in the face of a lot of recognition programs that give rewards and all that. And, you have point systems and you can turn it in for gifts and all that. It's fine, but the research shows it's not real motivating, because motivation and feeling valued are sort of different, and that it feels pretty impersonal. And so now one of the things we found is that pairing a personalized gift, personalized is a key word, with their other language. If you write them a note or say thanks to them and you say, hey, I was thinking about you, I thought you might enjoy this. Like I'm a Kansas Jayhawk basketball fan. So, you get me a magazine about, they won the championship last year. Man, I'd be all over that. So, but it's about getting to know me and sharing it with maybe some words or time as well. The way you offend people with tangible gifts is you give everybody the same thing. And I don't have time to talk about the fairness issue, but just don't worry about it. Because, especially if they understand you're trying to give them what's valuable to them, that's not the same thing that's valuable to the gal that sits next to them. If you gave them the same thing, it would be valuable to one and not the other. So you're trying to personalize it. And or if you just don't put any thought or effort, just please take my advice. Give up on the mugs with candies and a pen. I mean, that's just like, it's almost offensive now. And we can talk about logo wear as well. There's a degree of help. I've had others in major companies say they feel like they're a walking billboard, and that it's not really about them, it's for the company. So you got to be careful about that. Physical touch, I know you all are excited about that. We talked more about it last week. I'm just going to jump to that. Appropriate physical touch does occur. It's really spontaneous celebration. And it can happen, in a group when land a contract. It can be, a high five when you solve a problem. It's a fist bump when you finish a project, maybe a congratulatory handshake when you make a sale. But it's less than 1% of the population in the majority culture. Now, there's some cultures and regions. I mean, in the South, we give side hugs a lot. New York, we're not doing that. They just sort of nod across the room. But also our Latin friends and Hispanic friends are more physical. And so not being physical can feel very cold to them. But the key is it's who the recipient always determines what's appropriate. And so I've had people say, I don't want anybody anywhere ever touching me. And so we got to honor that. Moving into remote. So we talked earlier on about retention and recruitment. Here, remote employees, and it's a big push right now. And I'm writing an article, just did some research. We did some research both prior to COVID, during COVID, and we found that remote and on-site employees differ in how they want to be shown appreciation. One thing is that as a group, remote employees tend to desire quality time more frequently, which makes sense, right? If you're out there on your own, especially away from sort of the home office, it's like, I'd like some connection. And it moved from 26% to I think 36 or 35% and moved mainly away from words. But probably more importantly is there's some key ways to show appreciation effectively to remote workers. And one of them is that you've got to be proactive. I mean, if you don't learn anything else about remote employees, you got to be proactive because you don't have those spontaneous interactions where you see them in the break room or in the elevator coming up to the office or in the parking lot. So you don't have those, and if you don't proactively think about and sort of plan some interaction, say, I haven't seen Steven in a while, I should ping him and see what's up. It's not going to happen, and so it's key that you've got to be proactive. Now, remember, I'm not just talking about supervisors and managers. We're talking about colleagues, and so like I have team members that are hybrid, and some are more frequently remote than others. And I'll cue some of my team members to make sure, hey, have you talked with Sharon lately? Why don't you give her a call and see what's up? Because it's not just about me; it's about other people too. Secondly, and this is the point, it's about peers. That as a manager supervisor, you should be checking in with your remote employees. If you're not, you're asking for trouble. Um, and it's not just about work, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that we want people to stay connected with one another, um, and that it's at a personal level. Yes, we have to talk about work and the projects and how tasks and budgets and so forth, but one of the differences is when you're on site, there are times and opportunities for sort of informal discussions, what we used to call water cooler chats. I mean, we don't have those anymore, really. But it's like you walk by somebody's office or cubicle and you stick your head in and say, "Hey, did you see the game last night?" Or, how did the soccer with your kids go this weekend? And it's about personal stuff. It's about life. It's not just about work. And we have to really sort of um, foster that in our remote relationships. Um, and so let me just say this: we're learning more and more about different kinds of things, and that video chats, conferences, phone calls, all that's fine and it's good. It's better than emails and texts and phone calls if you have a video component. But what we're finding out from sort of neuroscience is that video conferences is great, but it's not the same qualitatively as when we're in person. And think about it. I mean, when you're in person, like you can only see certain parts of my body, probably chest up. So you don't know if I'm bouncing my leg, or and also video technology is still sort of flat. So you may not pick up on some certain nuances of blushing or a tick or something like that if I'm nervous. And also, we're finding out that, and this is a little bit sci-fi-ish, but trust me, it's there. That when we're in person and when we're connecting with a person, we actually sort of share and bounce off each other's brainwaves. And it's a different level of communication. It's sort of like when you're in a brainstorming flow with somebody and you're like, yeah, this is good. That's sort of what's happening. And it does not happen via computer, y'all. And so it's good to do video conferencing, but don't rely on it solely. Um, and also for those of you that maybe have some kind of peer-to-peer recognition program where you send a kudos or whatever it is, that's fine, but it's only words. And so it's just another form of words, and you're leaving all those other languages out. Now, we've created an online or a version of our online assessment for remote team members and how to show appreciation remotely. And I think I forget what I'm offering. I'm giving you a discount or something to be able to get that, or actually I think a free code to try it out. So here's the key, and I know this may seem out of reach for some of y'all, but if all possible, I've been working with some of these big companies that have international virtual teams, and it does not work well if they've never met. And you really need to try to meet together in person at least occasionally, once a year, once every 2 years, or don't. It doesn't have to be the whole team. I mean, get at least part of the team. If they're in the Southeast U.S. and then part in the Upper Midwest, but think about people that you've met, you've known, and then but never really met them personally, and then you get personal time with them. It's very different. You have a different understanding, and part of it is that sort of neurological stuff going on. Part of it is being able to observe and see them in different situations. So, man, if you can afford it at all, make it a priority to get together in person at least every once in a while. Here's some stuff. I just threw this in this morning. Just finished research this weekend on a survey of 400 employees and supervisors about working remotely. And asked, okay, what are the benefits? And this was open-ended questions. Okay, just tell me what 38% said number one benefit is not having to commute. Save the time, save the time of having to get dressed for work, and the cost. Okay, so that's a huge piece. Part of dealing with remote employees, and I'm putting together a major presentation and an article on this, is that you got to understand them. Not everybody who's remote is the same, right? You got remote frontline workers, you got supervisors, managers, you got accountants, you got maybe graphic designers, and there's different kinds of remote, right? There's across the city, there's across the state, country, internationally. I mean, we got to understand them. So that's part of the reason we did this. So you got to understand that in their mind, this is people who are working remotely. The number one benefit is not having to commute. Okay. Now I understand pros and cons in different settings, but I'm just telling you what we're finding out. Secondly, second highest one, 27%, that they believe and report that they're more productive and they have to deal with less distractions, mainly people talking to them when they're trying to get into the flow, and that's a major benefit for them. Next one, and I got more, but I just wanted to give you a couple of points. Downsides, the number one, and this was huge, 57% said they were lonely, they miss social interaction, they just feel out there alone. That is huge, and it ties into what we're talking about, because learning how to communicate remotely and that they're valued and appreciated is huge. 12%, there were a couple that sort of were in this range, that they have the difficulties in collaborating and managing. I mean, brainstorming together, getting input, that it's tougher to do that remotely. So just wanted to throw that in there for you. Implications are, you got to stay connected with your colleagues, what's going on with them personally. Yeah, we got to figure out the workflow, but if you don't stay connected with them personally, we actually know that you're more likely to lose them by far if you don't do that. The other part is to develop a plan for your team members supporting one another. It's not just for you, but okay, how do we get this going for everybody? We have a remote version of our inventory. We've actually got a virtual training kit that you can do online with videos and all that, and try to have in-person gatherings, even if it's infrequent. Got information here about our inventory. It creates the primary, secondary language of appreciation, one that you don't really value, specific actions. And I'm gonna, if you write to me, I'll give you a free code to take it. We have group charts that you can chart out among team members. And then to get the handout of today's slide deck, a code for the inventory, and some more information about the research, just email me at yesdrpaul@gmail, and I'll get that to you. Okay. So yesdrpaul@gmail, and we'll try to make it available otherwise. So that's it. Quick.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Am I still on? Here we are.
yep, we still got
I
you.
went away.
We've still got you. Thought you had another
All
comment
right.
there, but oh, this really really great content, and very thankful for the chance to dive a little bit deeper here today into some of the specifics. And we have had a few questions come in, and so I wanted to see if we can pop a few of those in and
Sure.
take a look at those. One of them coming out of Haiti. Dr. Paul, what do you think about a promotion or well paying? I'm assuming maybe increased paying. Do they make someone feel valued at the workplace?
So, great question, and it sort of goes. We have over 100 years of research done different times. It shows that money, as far as helping people feel valued, is very short term. Okay,
Mm,
that it will you know, when you get a raise or a bonus or something, you feel good for a while. But most recent research I've seen is after about 3 months, that effect has gone away, and so you're still paying them more, but you're not getting a benefit from it. So yeah, you want to obviously have them paid appropriately for their position and the kind of responsibilities they have and their performance. But if you rely on that solely, you're going to be disappointed.
yeah, excellent. And another question here, in tracking the five languages of appreciation at work's impact in companies, how do you assess impact on employee productivity?
Yeah, Steve, thanks. Great question. So the research that we've been able to cite has been primarily comparing companies, groups of companies, of people, groups of companies that are in the top quartile, the top 25% of employees feeling valued and appreciated, with companies in the same industry in the lowest quartile, and that don't feel valued, and that the difference in productivity is significant between those two groups. Now, I can tell you, and we're just getting to the point where we're integrating into some bigger systems where we can track appreciation with longevity, with time off and that kind of stuff. So we're still getting that, but like this New York Times, I mean, I could send you to companies that just say, "Man,
Hmm.
I love this mining one," because you wouldn't think about a bunch of concrete truck drivers or guys running heavy machinery getting into this, but they actually made. We have symbols for each of the languages, and they made stickers for their helmets, and so they got that. And the management says, our largely, I think the easiest way is that you reduce turnover. But also, what happens is that people follow policies and procedures more when they feel
Hmm.
valued versus if they don't. But we're still working on that sort of pre-post kind of thing. Our training clearly shows that we can improve people's sense of feeling valued and appreciated. We're still working on dealing in real life companies is a little tougher research than and having groups of sophomores of college students. So,
Sure.
but we're getting there.
Well, I know I can speak to just the reality of as soon as I had gone through that inventory and had understood my languages, that there was an immediate sense of the ability to grasp in a more concrete way how would I engage with others just based on my knowledge of myself, much less,
Yeah.
then understanding others. And so I think there is that immediate tangible result of when you go through that inventory and you provide that for your team that they can begin to get their hands around what are some just easy next steps to make this really
Yeah,
valuable.
and you know what we found? I mean, a lot of supervisors and clearly managers and executives have taken all kinds of personality inventories and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Um, and so it's like, this isn't that big a deal. But for frontline employees, they love this because they don't get access to our inventory is really cheap. I mean, if you, it's $15 down to 11 if you buy 100 or more, which is inexpensive to be able to do for teams. And they love finding out about and say, hey, yeah, that is right. This is how I do it. And they want to find out about their friends. So it's an interesting process for those that really haven't had the opportunity to take other kinds of things like the disc or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah, outstanding. Well, I had one more question here coming from Ryan Dickinson. And Ryan is asking, do you believe that quiet quitting is primarily due to a lack of feeling appreciated, or are there
Ooh.
other cultural forces at work?
Ha. Oh my. I think I don't I can't say if it's primarily due to that. I mean, I think not feeling valued and appreciated clearly is a factor. I
Sure.
think we have a major problem in our culture that we have not done a good job of helping people, young people and others, develop appropriate expectations about work and what work
Mm,
is. And so, if you want to make a difference in the world, or if you want to feel fulfilled, most of us, especially entry level jobs, suck. To be honest, I mean, it's either bad hours or tough work or situations low pay, and you got to work your way up.
Mhm.
And so you're not going to feel like you're changing the world or making a difference early on. And so if we have that expectation, I think people one approach to feeling disappointed or expectations not being met is to get passive and apathetic. And I think that's partly what we're seeing. And so part of it is uh, giving people a realistic view of what the job is about and how it relates to the endpoint. But clearly, also, if you feel like nobody cares, why put forth the effort? That's
Mm.
part of it as well.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Well, another follow up question here from Steve, just do many companies incorporate peer or 360 surveys to measure or even incentivize the five languages of appreciation at work, those measures?
Yeah, more and more, they're sort of um, teamed up with other kinds of things. So the
Mm.
appreciation stuff, plus peer reviews, or
Mm.
just performance reviews and what you need to grow in. Um, and that one of the things that I encourage leaders and managers is, if you want to communicate appreciation to somebody, um, don't only do it in a performance review, because you hear good things and you hear growth areas, right? Well, what do you remember? You remember the growth areas. You don't even remember what they said positive. So you got to make sure you send that message, that positive message, maybe separately as well,
Mm.
and maybe repeatedly.
Mm. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense for sure. That ongoing appreciation brings the most value, as you've been describing, especially the different languages, the different areas, and ways that comes about. Receiving of gifts, what have you, that's an ongoing, and oftentimes it's the unexpected, that moment when you don't expect it, that it just brings just the
Exactly.
greatest value. Yeah.
In fact, here's a tip about gifts. I have a friend that is sort of the guru of gifts in the business world. And companies have done terrible job of giving gifts. At the holidays, don't give a gift from your organization to another organization. That doesn't encourage anybody, because it's not personal, right? I mean, it's like from you to your supplier or whatever, but make it personal from you to the
Mm.
person in that organization, right? Secondly, gifts have been shown to have the most impact when they're unexpected.
Mm.
And so it's better to give a gift in late January, February, March, to communicate that you value the people. They're going to remember it more than if you sent them the fruit basket at Christmas time, right? So it's about being personal, and it's about being really sort of unexpected.
Well, I'll say this: great job, Paul.
Well, it's better than good job, I guess. I'll take that.
As the bad example, this is what you should not do. Paul, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Just so much valuable content that I know we're all going to be able to take with us, and look forward to next month. And any other thoughts around the topic for next month? A little bit of an introduction as far as dealing with the negativity.
Yeah, hopefully your organization isn't sort of just covered with negativity, but most organizations have pockets of negativity, right? Complaining and grumbling and all that. And so we're going to talk about neutralizing negativity, and
Hmm.
how do you do that in a very practical way, and what you can do, what you can't do. And it's not that tough. It just takes a little
Hmm.
bit of observation and intentionality, and you can help at least keep it from spreading, for sure. And then using appreciation and other positive kinds of things to turn it around. So I'm pretty sure they'll come out with some practical steps as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to mention the book discount here again, as we just very grateful for Paul's time here today. And there is a discount code that you can utilize when you go to appreciationatwork.com, and that's FCCI 2023. And if you use that discount code, you'll get 40% off. And look forward to hearing great things as people engage with the book and actually take that to heart and apply it. Buy a few copies for others in the workplace. There you go. There's a nice gift. Pass that along. And then look forward to our webinar next month. Again, we'll have that registration out to you soon and be able to be a part of that. And again, pass that along. Let others know about the opportunity to join in and be a part of our webinar on March 28th. So thanks again for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you again next time.